Good morning, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to episode 99 of the Unsecurity podcast. Today is September 30th, 2020. And joining me is my co-host and friend, Brad Nye. Good morning, Brad.
Good morning, Evan.
How you doing, man?
The weather's nice, but allergies are a little rough.
The weather's nice.
I like this weather.
Yeah, you and I have a different definition of nice, I think. That's okay.
It's cool in the morning, get nice in the afternoon, nice and warm, like mid-60s, sunny.
Yeah, I suppose. All right, well, we've got a special show planned for our listeners this week. Brad, you and I, we both watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix. It's a documentary about social media in our society, and interestingly, it was released in January. It's funny how neither of us, you or I, had watched it until just recently. Yeah, you watched it, what, Sunday night?
Sunday night, yep.
And I watched it, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. And now it's trending number 6 as the most popular video on Netflix, but that changes every day. But I guess it's better late than never. Better late to the party than not showing up at all. Before we jump in, because I am really excited about talking about this because it was kind of an eye-opener for me. But let's catch up quick. It's customary for us. What's up? What's new with you? What's going on at FRSecure, at home, whatever?
Like you said, it's nice weather. I did a ton of yard work over the weekend and then just kind of relaxed and enjoyed it. Some family time. We've got, just so much going on with like big things coming for FRSecure. So, working on the new vCISO program and how that's going to look, and the IR maturity assessment, and just a ton of stuff going on.
Cool. That's cool. Yeah, it keeps you busy. Every time now I'm on these videos, I turn them on and I look and I'm like, my God, you look tired as hell. I look tired. Do I look tired?
A little bit.
My eyes like this or something.
Yeah. Now you look like the owl behind you.
Yeah, that owl. I like the owl. He keeps an eye on things, I'm sure. For people who are just listening to the podcast, we're on video too, and I've got an owl background who's on my shoulder, checking things out. Yeah, man, there's so much crap going on. Not crap, it's good stuff. It's a bunch of stuff at the state of Minnesota going on. I think I wrote a couple new things last week. I can't even remember what it was anymore, but Security SEO, new features coming. Always new features coming. You're never done. It's like, oh, we should do this. So automatic population of crime index is coming. Did you know that?
I didn't know it was confirmed. I know that you guys have been working on that.
Yeah. Well, because that's one of the things where when you're doing the risk assessment or you're doing the S2 org risk assessment, you have to go outside of the program to go get data, and you have to do it at a place where you have to subscribe.
Yeah.
And so I didn't like that. I didn't like to have an additional expense for anybody. Plus, it's just inconvenient. So instead, we built a table, or a pretty big database, actually, of every zip code in the United States, and its crime metrics. So we used a variety of data. We used data from ADP, data from the FBI, which ADP pulls from too. Just a bunch of different data sources and put it into our own table.
Nice.
Yeah. So now when you enter in the address, because again, for the listeners, information security is not just IT, right? We also have to take into account physical controls. So we have to take into account the people part, administrative. And so on the physical side of things, so much is influenced by the crime rate of the location you're in. We're also going to pull that data into S2Me, which will be kind of cool.
Oh, cool.
So if you're doing it person, yeah. So I think a lot of people aren't really aware of the crime rate in their own backyards, in their own neighborhoods. You just only see what you see, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't hear sirens every day, well, it must be good.
Yeah.
but especially property crimes. Property crimes are ones that, you typically happen late at night. There's not an immediate victim, like in a violent crime, you know that right away, right? That's when you hear the sirens, right?
Right.
Uh, but on a property crime, typically it's reported the next day, the next month, and it happens. I think typical hours for most property crimes like theft, burglary happen, uh, between the hours of 2 a.m. and 4 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing.
While you're sleeping.
What is it that everyone always says nothing good happens after 2 a.m.?
Yep, yep. And sadly, a friend of ours from church, he actually passed away. He was only 21 years old. Speaking of after 2 a.m., 2:30 in
Wow.
the morning, him and a buddy were drunk driving, and weren't wearing their seatbelts, flipped the car.
Oh,
They were both extracted, and he didn't make it. But that was 2:30 in the morning. So again, 2 a.m. man, it's time to
yeah.
maybe be locked up doing work, writing something, or sleeping.
As
That's
I say, either be
best.
working or sleeping. That's about all you should be doing at 2 a.m.
Right. Or burglary.
You shouldn't be doing that.
No, you should burglary. Don't burglar. Don't burgle.
Don't
Is
burgle.
burgle a word?
I
Is
don't know, but
burgle a word?
it's fun to say.
It's kind of fun to say. I can honestly have never burgled.
No. Nope.
Done a lot of things, but that's one that I haven't. All right. So family, you're healthy, other than your sinus infection today.
Yeah. Yeah. Feeling pretty good.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So you watched The Social Dilemma on Sunday night.
Correct. Yep.
All right. What did you think?
You know, I'm a little torn because a lot of it in there wasn't terribly surprising or new. We've known that these companies have these algorithms and they're doing these things, and so it wasn't anything terribly surprising to me. I'm glad that maybe it's going to uh, shine some light to maybe expose this to others that don't think that way. But I don't know. It felt I didn't like the fact that the people that made the money off of it and built these companies were like, well, gosh, look what's happening, and trying to come across. It almost came across as self-righteous,
Yeah.
and they profited. They built the stuff, right? If they really had a problem with it, why would you stay there for 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, the different takes that I get from people who have watched it, because I've heard everything. Because I like hearing other people's perspective on stuff. We don't do that enough, I think, in today's society, where it's okay to disagree with people. Uh, I talk to some people, and they're like, "Oh my God, really?" I mean, their eyes were like opened. And then you talk to others who are like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense." And then you talk to others who, like, I talked to one person who just simply disagreed with it all. They're just like, "Nope." I'm like, really?
The
And then I
headless
talked to others. Yeah. And I talked to some who were like one person in particular, and I'm not going to mention any names here because I don't want to out anybody that I didn't get permission for. But one person was like, "Well, I don't use social media, so it doesn't really matter to me." And I was like, "Well, it does, because people, you don't live in a bubble. The people you interact with every day at the grocery store, at at the gas station, they are using social media, and they are influenced by social media. And it's beyond influence; it's manipulation. They're manipulated by social media, and so if you want to interact with others, it helps to understand where they come from. So where are they getting their data? Where are they getting their information? Well, if they're getting it from social media, that's going to be different than you.
right.
And I'll give you an example. Uh, yeah, I mean, I could talk all day about some of the stuff, but one of the things that struck me was, I went to Sturgis in August. and I was responsible. I want to be a responsible adult. I don't want to put people at risk. I don't want to hurt anybody. Uh, I went there for my own mental health. I needed to get some sense of normalcy. This year's been insane for me, and so went to Sturgis. Nobody was wearing masks. People spreading. You had two camps, right? It was so diametrically opposed. One was like, it's a super spreader event. Everybody, the whole world, you're going to expose everybody. And then the others are like, it's way overblown. Just be yourself. So I went to Sturgis, and then you come back from Sturgis, and then I socially distanced, or actually isolated, for 2 weeks. I didn't get COVID. I didn't bring COVID with me. I'm cool, I think. Well, at least I was, because the 2 weeks for sure, right?
Right.
I mean, I was outside of that window. So then, and the news stories, and I haven't read recently, but it was 300-ish maybe confirmed cases came from Sturgis, allegedly, right? One study, and one death. So there are 460,000 people that were in Sturgis. When you do the math, it's like, it doesn't seem like much of a super spreader event to me.
Yeah.
And then there was another study that came, right? And it said 260,000 people were
exposed or whatever.
Right. That Sturgis was responsible for 260,000 COVID infections. It's like, huh?
Yeah.
300 on one side, 260,000 on the other side. And then I read that study word for word, all 53 pages of it. And I was like, no, this is all, it's crap. So, but the reason why this is important, and I'm getting to the point, I promise, is if I'm getting my news fed to me that says 300 people, and then you're getting your news that says 260,000 people,
yeah,
and we meet right, and we meet at the grocery store, and you find out that I went to Sturgis. If you're the 260,000 person, you're like, you selfish son of a bitch. You exposed everybody. Look what you did. You were part of this. And I'm thinking, like, what? What are you talking about?
Right.
There was no super spreader, man. Because I'm getting my news saying 300 people. Right. So you already think I'm the biggest jerk. And I'm wondering, what the hell is your problem? You know what I mean? And that's some of the stuff that happens with the social media.
Yeah. Well, you see it all the time. You get into an echo chamber, right? Where you're only following people that, you agree with and support your view. Well, that's not great. I mean,
No.
you need to be looking at as much as you can and looking at opposing views and understanding, trying to get the whole picture, not just like you said, well, the thing I saw said 300, or the study I saw said 260. Like, you can't just look at one and be like, well, there we go.
Well, that's why I was trying to make the point to this
Right.
person who says that are not, I don't deal with much with social media. Well, you should know that this stuff is happening because you need to take the time. Like, if somebody is like judging you and all over your ass about something, and you're wondering, like, what is the deal? What's your reality, man?
Yeah.
Maybe that's part of it. That's what they get fed every single day. And so, all right, so backing up a little bit, I thought it was interesting how I really do think that a lot of these guys and gals started these platforms for good purpose. Like the guy who invented the like button.
Yeah.
He said that he invented it because he wanted to spread positivity through the world, right? I mean, liking
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. And, I wouldn't necessarily, I don't disagree with that. I don't think that these people started it with malicious intent.
Right. Well, and I think what it was when media first sort of started, the customer was you and me.
Hmm.
We weren't the product. The
Right.
product was whatever, was their platform. Uh, and then one of the guys said, I think that uh, if any product is free, then you're the product or something.
Oh yeah, if it's free, you're not the consumer, you're the product. Yep.
Yeah. And so that's what even the advertisers, sort of came in and figured out how to monetize, social media. Then it became, well, if I want my ads to have the most impact and I want to sell them for premium dollar and I want to make the most amount of money, well, then my data better be really, really good. So then we start tracking every single thing that people do, where how much time they spend everywhere, so
Right.
that my targeted ads hit you with the best possible chance of you doing the action that I want you to do. Right.
Yeah.
And if I get better at it, if I'm Facebook and I'm better at this than, Instagram, and the advertiser are going to spend their money on Facebook instead of Instagram or vice versa or whatever. Right. And so whoever's got the best sort of data is going to fetch the top dollar, and then it just exacerbates. And then it crosses another line. Like it's fine fine, but if you just capture data about somebody and try to use it to target them, we've been doing that for years. Well, an issue is when I start feeding data back to you to manipulate you into doing things that um, become unhealthy
Yeah.
and make it addicting.
I
Holy
would say
crap,
I
is
think
social media addicting?
yeah, yeah, it definitely is. And I personally I don't I have the Twitter account. I'm barely on it other than to kind of use it as a news aggregator. But yeah, you do see it where it's like, people have to post immediately to whatever for everything that happens. It's that instant gratification of posting and getting the likes or whatever, you know, internet points for the platform you're using. So I do think
Yeah.
that there is that. You have to be careful about that. But
There's so many things to account for. It was funny when they started show. They asked these people who are super smart people, right, that have been in the social media industry and the tech industry for a long time. They started out the show and they asked, "What's the problem?" And you know how they all they couldn't put it into a word or just a simple statement.
mm,
The problem is bigger and deeper than that, right? And you explain the suicide rate in teenage girls aged 11 to 14 nearly tripling since 2011,
right. There, oh, there's
when the
definitely
decades before that it was flat.
right. No, there's definitely issues, and I mean we've talked about it. It's that a big part of it is cyberbullying, right? It's before you had to actually physically be around someone to bully them. Now it's never. It's just as far as your phone, right?
Right.
It's around the clock.
Well, and how often have bullies bully oftentimes because they feel insecure about themselves, right? If I put you down, that elevates me, kind of thing. We dealt with bullies on the playground,
Mm-hmm.
and you know they're just usually they're just immature, little people, little people inside. You know what I mean? They just, and then so they come out kind of fighting, because if they put you in, then they feel less worse about themselves. When you do it online, you know, I'm trying to get more likes, trying to get more followers, trying to do whatever. And if you're somebody who's, I view as a potential threat, or I can get other people, I mean, there's just so many motivations for bullying now that you
Yeah,
didn't have before.
yeah. Well, I think people, it's easier to do it because it's anonymous too, or it can be,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And it
So
lives forever. Like when I would get bullied on the playground, we'd just
so
fight.
yeah, and then you go home and it's done.
My neighbor, his name was Matt. I'll never forget this kid. Uh, we were best friends, and I don't know, maybe once every couple of months, you know, we'd fight.
But
And
guys
so I'd
do.
beat the crap out of him, or he'd beat the crap out of me. And then, later that afternoon, we're out, riding dirt bikes again.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
now online, it doesn't happen like that.
right, right. Oh well, like I said, you can't escape it.
Right. So there's the bullying part, certainly. There's the when I'm so attached to something, that's where I feel my value. Some people it's food, right? They're
Mhm.
addicted to food. That's where their attachment is. They feel good when they eat certain foods. And I thought it was really interesting in the social dilemma how they've used and mastered the psychology of behaviors to create their applications in a way to influence behaviors. One of those that came up, and and this is a side effect of it, is that Snapchat dysmorphia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and you do see that, and it doesn't help that people are doing all these filters and photoshopping, and it's just incredibly easy to do, right? It's that false impression of what
Yeah.
real is.
Well, totally. And like, I have a 15-year-old daughter, and you have daughters that are teenagers, or one that's a teenager now. They, what, I think women, it's different from boys and girls, right? It's so different. Like, girls like to be complimented on their looks, complimented. You know what I mean? It's different. Boys, it might be accomplishments or sports, and it's just, and sometimes there's a mix between the two. I'm not saying that
Right.
I'm speaking in generalities, but it's sad to see that I get my gratification from what you think I look like on a computer screen, and not who I am as a person.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I don't, yeah, I don't like it, but it's kind of where we're at right now.
Well, and we're going to get to that because I think we can undo some of this. We can make it better. What I'm not cool with is like there's something that's broken, and then just sitting there and going, well, shit. Excuse my language. Well, that's where it is. That's the way it is. That's
Yeah.
not good enough.
Well,
Because even if it's not influencing me, it's influencing the people I interact with every day.
true. But going back to the social dilemma, the movie, and saying you mentioned, not doing anything. I did find it interesting that Netflix is producing this, and they had a prize for, what was it, like $1 million to build a better algorithm for recommendations, right? But they don't mention themselves in the film
Right.
for doing it, but they do the exact same thing, and
Right.
the other thing that kind of came across is you had all these people saying, "Oh, well, it's horrible," but no real solution other than just put your phone down, quit doing it. There was no like positive, like no action items other than, well, just don't do
Right.
it, right? How do we
Well,
fix
and
it?
I think I've got some action items for us towards the end that I'd like to talk about.
Sure.
Because I agree. I think we need to do something, and it needs to be us. It needs to be people, not the companies. If you're expecting Twitter or Facebook or Instagram to fix this themselves,
Mm, no. Oh,
you're
I
insane.
mean,
They're making
right.
billions and billions of dollars. Why are they going to change it?
Oh, absolutely. They're in it to make money, but I don't know. It was. like I said at the very beginning, there were some good parts of the movie. Like it brought to light a lot of things that I think I'm going to use the air quotes for the normal people that they may not have realized. There were some points where my wife was like, "Oh, I didn't know that," and to me, I was like, "Duh, this has been the case forever." So, I think that it could potentially do some, bring some positive light to it, but overall, I don't know. It just it, it felt like honestly like a kind of a ego boost for the people that were on it, right? Like, well, we're so good because we're calling this out now, and
See, I love the fact that you and I see it different, because
yeah,
that's what makes it cool, man. Honestly, I don't take offense to people who see things differently, because I saw it different. I saw it as a group of people who wanted to do good and then realized, oh my God, what did we just create? And they had a change of heart. That's the way I read it.
and I could totally see that, right? And
Yeah.
but I don't. There was a bunch of stuff, so I started looking at you have a list of all the people that were kind of featured on there, and so I
Mm-hmm.
started doing some looking on it, and like you had hang on, I gotta look at who it was. Tim Kendall. He's a
Tim Kendall.
CEO, or yeah, he's the CEO of a company that helps you reduce your screen time. Like, but they don't mention that. There. It feels like there was just some. It wasn't completely truthful, right? Like it was doing some manipulation itself to do this,
Sure.
and
Well, I
again,
think everybody's got a bias, but
right. Again, I think that overall, I'm hoping that it can bring some light to some of these things that people don't realize. But I, I,
yeah. Well, okay. So try to get past the motivation, or trying to
right.
understand maybe the motivation of the people that were in the movie. If you look at the movie just for the facts, or you look at the movie for the things that are actually happening with social media, what things in there can we dispute? Because I can't really find anything. It's all completely feasible. And what it did for me was it took, like you, a lot of things. Uh, I don't like social media
Mhm.
much. Um, I try to get other points of view. I don't hate, I really dislike making decisions based on opinions. I like making decisions based on facts. I
Mhm.
don't make decisions uh, on second information. I mean, I'll give you an example. Last week, one of our executives came to me and was explaining to me what they think another executive is thinking or feeling. And I was like, hold up. If the other executive is having an issue, they can come talk to me. I use firsthand information. I don't use secondhand information.
Yeah.
I'll consider it, but if you're telling me something that somebody else said, if I'm going to operate under that premise, I'm probably going to get it wrong, because
Yeah.
I'm interpreting you're saying about somebody else is thinking. The hell? Why don't I just go to the person who's thinking the things that you say they're thinking? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
when I looked at the social dilemma, you see all these things happening in the world around you, and I'm always trying to figure out like facts, like what the hell is actually going on. You take COVID, you could take any of the events of this year, take the social justice movements, whether it be Black Lives Matter or Antifa or whatever else, and you look at the stuff, and I'm like, what the hell? How does this make any damn sense?
Well, I think the one of the big issues with social media is it makes it really hard to differentiate between fact and opinion, right? Like there's just
Well, you
so
have
much
alternate
out there.
realities.
Right, exactly. It people are throwing so much out there. It's like, what do I? But what's the reality? Or like you said, and so I think that's a big issue. And that's the other thing. Like if you look at reputable news sources, they have a vetting process. They have to do, editorials and
But
all this
who's a
stuff.
reputable news source now?
Well, I'm just traditionally, like, you're looking at, like, I'm just looking at, like, Washington Post or the New York Times or some of those bigger, newspaper or news organizations, right? But they have a process, regardless of who it is. There's a actual process, right? They have to,
Yeah. See, the
but
thing that I've learned is like everything is for sale. Everything. Your information, you as a human being are for sale. The the uh the one doctor, what was it? Dr. Crap, what was her name? I believe it was either Dr. Zuboff,
yeah,
Shoshana Zuboff.
that was the Human Futures.
Yeah, because the Washington Post, the Washington Times, Fox News, CNN, all these news organizations are, I mean, go to one of their websites, right? Do you not see ads? If I go to their website, I probably see different ads than you see because I have ads that are served up specifically for
Mm-hmm.
me. They're also influenced. It's all dollars, right? So I don't even know what is a reputable news source anymore because they feed me different realities. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? It's just,
I
so
think.
if you want to find like real facts, you have to do the work and go find real facts.
Oh, I would agree. Like, don't just trust one source, right?
Yeah, I mean, go back to the 260,000 study or whatever the number was of people that were infected
Mhm.
because of Sturgis. Every news, not every, but every major news organization that I was able to find went with that story as is, basically. So CNN, Fox News, it was one that crossed over the political spectrum, which is interesting. Left and right were both taking this and running with it. And I'm like, what the hell? So you read the damn report and you're like, this is a crap study. Sorry. And it's not peer reviewed. You've got three metrics that go into this thing that you drew this conclusion. The metrics don't correlate. So I don't know how the hell you came up with 260,000. I mean, everybody ran with it like it's fact. And then after a while, after the dust settled a little bit, you see a couple news stories that come out and like, yeah, that report was probably BS. Well, nobody follows your second, your redactions.
Well, and I think that's part of the issue is we've gotten into this 24/7 news cycle, you know, uh, regardless, I would say probably driven by social media more than anything. And it's just a rush to be the first, right? It's
Right.
so many people are just like wanting to be the first that they don't
Yeah.
always take the time to do some of that checking to verify what's going on.
Right. And so why do they want to be the first?
Well, because
Money.
that's what drives your money, right? If you're the first, you get cited,
Money.
drives revenue, drives traffic to your site.
It's back to right.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
So you have the information age because you and I remember when news seemed to be actually news, right?
Mhm.
When it wasn't so heavily influenced by advertisers, by social media. And it's not that my wife and I were talking, uh, she says, well, money is the root of all evil. And I'm like, that's not true. It's the love of money that's the root of all evil.
Yeah. It's
Money's not bad, right?
no
It's when you start to love money, when you compromise
prioritize money over.
morals, you're
Yeah.
right. When you compromise morals and ethics and all these things for the dollars. And it seems to me, that the social media started off probably with good intentions. Even Facebook, right? Facebook was, a campus tool for, interaction.
Right.
I, I, I doubt that Zuckerberg thought, oh, this is going to be a multi billion-dollar idea where I can influence elections and influence, all this stuff. That's what it became. Somewhere along the line, I think there was a compromise in, oh, money seems pretty damn quick and cool things with it, and just insulate myself from the rest of the world and all this sinful crap I did. You know what I mean?
Mm, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's a mess.
What is it? And it's not going to get better, right? You and I know how math works. You and I know how algorithms work. You and I know how AI works. AI just continues to progress.
Right.
More data, more learning, refinement of the decision trees or whatever, not decision trees, but refinement of feed more data to AI, and the better AI gets.
Yeah, but again, like we've talked about, the big issue with AI is it's built with the biases of whoever created it. So it's
Right. And in this case, if the motivation is me and I don't give a crap about you, you're the
monetization.
product.
Right. Yep. And
That's a scary AI, man.
yeah, yeah, I don't think that we disagree that there's some, unsettling things out there that, at this point, these companies now see people as the product, as a, uh, not consumable, but, you know, I don't know what the right word is. I'm struggling here, but, it is an issue. And like I said, the one thing I do like about the social dilemma is I think it's bringing a lot of this stuff to light to people that had no idea or weren't aware of it, whether it's, intentionally or just they didn't know. And I would be willing to bet the vast majority just didn't realize it, right? They just don't understand this. But I,
Yeah. Was there anything in the social dilemma that you disagreed with? Any of the conclusions? I mean, I know the bias is a thing, but
yeah, no, I mean, I don't. There were certain things about the way they did it, like, they had those three guys standing on at that.
oh, that was dumb. But
So I didn't like
yeah,
some of that stuff, like, and I felt like that was misleading. Um, where they're like, oh, well, we're gonna do this stuff to make this. That's not how that works. And
but it's not all that unlike AI, is it? I mean, to the normal people who don't
well,
understand AI, if you were to show them the math and the algorithm, they would never understand that, but they can relate to
yeah,
that.
yeah. I don't know. I didn't like that. I just felt like it wasn't real good. But overall, I think there was a lot of good messages out of it, and it's there's a lot of things that
So you didn't like
I,
the three guys and the bias, but again, is there anything that you disagreed with? Any
no,
of the
I thought
conclusions?
that overall it was, like I said, it's going to bring to light a lot of things that a lot of some of the more, well, security, privacy, tech focused people probably knew about and understood. But so I think there's a lot of really good that could come from this, right? I'm not
What do you
disagreeing
think
with,
bad? What do you think? Yeah, what do you think bad could come from it?
you know, I think the biggest concern that I would have is that people are going to see this and take it as gospel, right? Like you said, they're not going to look and understand maybe another source. Like, hey, like I mentioned, what was the motivation of some of these people? I think that's important, regardless of what it is, whether it truly is, virtuous. I made a mistake. I tried to do something good, and now I want to call this to light. Or, hey, you should put your phone down. And guess what my company's does? We help you
Mm-hmm.
put your phone down, right? So I would hope that people that watch this and kind of it is eye opening start doing the research, right? Because if they just take
Right.
this as gospel and understand and say, nope, this is how it is. Well, that doesn't. That's exactly what's going on with social media. The movie is doing exactly the same thing.
Well, and that's why I'm asking you, and it seems like and it may come off like it's a challenging thing, and it's not meant to be that.
No.
I truly do want to know if there's anything that you disagree with that was in that documentary. I want to know, because that might push me towards doing additional research. Because one of the things I've learned crystal clear this year, and I've always known it, but it really to the surface, is when people can't defend their point, they typically do one of two things: they either change the subject or they start attacking your character.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm asking this isn't to see if you can defend your point. I want to learn more so I can defend mine. You know what I
So
mean? I'm like, what are you thinking?
so I funny. So I watched it, and I mean, you could ask, my wife. She'll tell you I was getting a little fired up at some of the stuff just because of how it was presented and the way, not necessarily the content, but how it was presented and some of the biases behind it. Because that is important, right? That's the whole point of social media, and
Right.
they were doing that same thing. So I did do some digging and looking, and there was what I thought was a good article on Tech Dirt. I don't know if you've ever really followed that site. I'll throw it in the
Yeah.
chat. Um, that I thought did a good job of kind of expressing a lot of the kind of some of the frustrations I had with it. Not necessarily, they're not
Mm-hmm.
saying what was in there is not true, but it would call us out some of the kind of the hypocrisy, I think, right? So
Sure.
that was my biggest issue with it is there this movie was meant to call out and say, hey, look, did you know this stuff is happening? But it turns around and is doing the exact same thing.
Well, I don't know. Is it?
I you know
I mean, that's that because the exact same thing. The things that I take issue with is people using my information or information of other people and using it in an unsuspecting way to manipulate them
yeah,
psychologically.
and and I agree that is
I
not
didn't feel like the movie was trying to manipulate me to do anything psychologically. I think what it was doing was calling awareness to, and the challenge in the movie in doing it this way is you have to reach various audience, right? You have the tech audience who's like, yeah, I could do without the story of the family and all that other BS because
right.
whatever. But then you've got the others who aren't tech people who are like, they resonated with that story. There might have been, I'm guessing that there were probably people that had no idea how AI actually works at
Oh
all.
yeah, I
And
fully
look and
agree
look
with
and look at those three guys, look at those three guys and go, is that sort of how AI works? Well, sort of. Not
you.
really, but we're getting you closer.
Yeah. Well, and again, I don't want to. I'm not disagreeing with the overall point, right? I think that
Yeah.
it did have good information,
Right.
but I
Okay.
didn't agree with how it was presented. But
Well, the
I'm not.
one thing I like about this stuff, yeah. Well, the one thing I like about this stuff too is what's our common ground. So our common ground is we both agree with the point.
Hmm. Oh, absolutely. Like, there's a reason I never had Facebook, and I don't have Instagram or Snapchat or whatever the thing is
Right.
for that exact reason. Yeah, what
Right.
they said in there, it's true. I absolutely fully understand that. The reason I have Twitter is for my professional kind of requirement
Right.
standpoint more than anything, not because I want to do it or like and enjoy it, right? So
Right.
I'm not
Well, it's just
disagreeing
like,
with that.
yeah, and it's just like anything, right? There's using something and being addicted to something,
Yep.
right? Like that's the reason why I don't drink, right? I'm not good at using alcohol. I abuse it,
Mm,
right? I'm addicted to such a thing. Uh, but with social media, it's something that's never been addicting to me. It doesn't, it just doesn't latch for some
yeah.
reason, and which is great because I don't want to be. So I can use social media. I have a Facebook account, and I may be on there once a week, maybe just what's up. I actually follow some Harley Davidson groups on there just to see what's going on with motorcycles and such. Um, Twitter, you know, Twitter pain in the ass because there's just so many stupid
Well,
things that get said on
it's
Twitter.
it's exactly
140
what we,
characters.
right. Well, it's what we were just talking about with all the stuff. I totally agree with the premise, right? If you're
Hmm.
not paying for it, you are the product, 100%.
Right.
It allows for this cyberbullying, and the anonymity allows for you know just hatred, misinformation, whatever it might be. I'm not arguing with that at all. Uh,
Right.
but yeah, like you said, I think it's interesting. We do agree on the central premise,
Hmm.
but I think the big disagreement is kind of maybe how it was presented and how it was portrayed.
Yeah.
Which, hey, that's what makes it great is we can have
Right.
different viewpoints, but at the end of the day, we both are kind of saying the same
Yeah.
want the same goal, right?
Well, that's the exercise too. I think in just having, in the podcast today is uh, disagreeing in the way things are presented is one thing. Disagreeing on the central point is another thing. Trying to find common ground so that you can progress and what are we what are we going to do about it? So our and the way things are presented, I get that, man. I mean, there's certain things that I watch, like, I mean, sit down and watch a TV with my wife, and I'm like, what the hell are we watching? This is stupid. And she's like enthralled with it. Well, that's okay. That's taste and whatever.
Right.
But the central point is, that social media is being used to manipulate people. And, uh, we got to do something about it.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Well, and yeah, I think the awareness and shining the light on it is going to be, one of the biggest factors, and that's what this movie is doing. And I think that's a good positive out of it. Right? And I think,
Yeah.
you know, like I don't know how many times I've already said it today. I think it's going to like bring this to light to people who never even considered it, who had nothing, like no understanding of it at all. And if they're
Right.
now aware of that and understand that and that makes a positive change for them, then that's great. That's a great first step, you know.
Right. Well, and the addictive nature of social media too, I have a 15-year-old daughter who I am maybe a little more liberal than other information security people in how she can use social media. Because and it's, different ways of raising kids and there's nothing wrong with it. Uh, I'm one of those parents who am willing to let their kids fail to learn a point, right? I'm always a safety net, right? You're always a safety net. It's
Right.
like when I let, like in our house when you're 18 years old and if you're not going to college or doing other things, then you're out.
Right.
I've taught you everything I can teach you. You can
Well,
make a living. So with my daughter and her social media use, uh, there was a few months ago, I grounded her, right? Because she snuck out and I caught her because I get up at all hours of the night, right? So I had gotten up at like 2 o'clock in the morning to go do some work. And here comes my daughter walking in with her
what?
friends. And I'm like, what are you doing? Well, she got grounded for a week. And part of the grounding was I'm taking your phone away. And I'm taking your phone away, knowing the psychological impacts of taking it away from a teenager. There's actually there's research that
Hmm.
you can cause some serious trauma, not unlike PTSD from taking a phone away from a kid. So so I said, from this hour till this hour, every night, you're not going to have you're not going to have your phone. Well, she heard me say that she wasn't going to have her phone for a week. She didn't hear me say for between this hour and this hour. So she damn near had a nervous breakdown because she thought I was taking her phone away, period, for an entire week.
Sorry. Yep. The kids just went to the bus stop and the dogs got put in the kennel and we're going insane. So I had to go yell at him real quick. I heard you though. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, it's something you do have to trust your kids, right? Like you hope you've raised them right. They're going to do the right things. Uh, you know,
The part, the
I'm
part
with
that
you.
surprised, the part that surprised me was just the mental reaction to thinking she wasn't going to have her phone for a week. You would have thought I lopped off her right arm.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm trying to think. My daughters aren't like they'll leave. We'll go out and they leave their phones here, or they'll let their phone's battery die and then plug it in. Which, by the way, really, I'm like, oh, it's at 2%. How? What? But
Mm-hmm. Oh
they
man,
they
100%.
nice. But I think setting expectations up front. My oldest one does have an Instagram. Her friends all had it, and she was kind of getting left out. So but she got it when she was 13, which is the terms of service. And I know she has friends who have younger siblings, like 6, 7 years old, that have Instagram accounts. That to me is an issue. As a parent, you're now, I'll say it, you're failing your kids. If you let them on
Right,
social media at 6, 7 years old, that's not cool. Like
right,
you're just
right.
setting them up for all this stuff we've been talking about. So, I think getting setting those expectations up front, being open and honest with your kids, talking to them, communicating with them, understanding their behaviors and being able to tell when there's a difference, when something changes. Because it, if they're being bullied at school, it's usually pretty easy to tell, right? Somebody's going to see it. It'll get around. They're getting bullied online. It's a lot harder to see. You may not even know, right? So just having open communication and trust with your kids is, really important, especially
Yeah.
with around social media.
So we're coming up on time. I think we do have part two for the social dilemma. This has been a great discussion. I've learned some things, in talking with you. And the reason why this is important, from an information security perspective, is information security isn't about. Well, there's lots of things actually.
Yeah.
This is that we've got some serious privacy issues here, where
Yeah.
people are using my data without my explicit consent. Yes, there is a terms of service. Yes, there was something you clicked, but when I say explicit, I mean known to you.
Right.
That you made a conscious decision that I'm going to trade all of my data for this thing, knowing the consequences of that. That really hasn't been fully by many people. And also, I'd still like to discuss um, what we can potentially do about this, because I'm
Yeah.
not one of the people where I'm like, oh well, this
No,
sucks. I mean, you and I are both not like that.
no, I agree. I think part two, where I think, more focus on what are the options, what are the solutions, how do we move forward from here, would be a really good discussion as well.
Yeah, I agree. So let's do that for next week.
Yep.
This week,
100.
great discussion. What's that?
I said next week's
100.
100. That's insane.
I know, man. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I looked at that too. That's crazy. So if you haven't looked yet, if you go to evanfrancine.com, you'll find the episode 99, these show notes, where you've got some additional notes that I had made. I did create a list of the sources,
Mhm.
including Tristan Harris, Jeff Siebert, Bailey Richardson, so on and so the people that were actually in that movie. If you want to go down the path of trying to figure out biases a little bit more, maybe that'll help. If you haven't seen The Social Dilemma yet, I highly suggest you do.
And-
Sit down, spend the hour and a half.
Yep. And
Uh,
I'll say, even though I didn't necessarily agree with how it was presented, I agree. You should. It has a good overall, I think, intent, but and I
mhm.
think it's going to bring a light to a lot of people.
Yeah, one of the things I don't want is social media is so ingrained into our society. I don't want people to be ignorant. I don't want you to just think, oh, it's just the way it is. You know, I open Facebook every morning and blah, 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 blah. You're not, people are, even though they act like it, people are not sheep. We're not. We have a left and a right. We have
Well,
logic and reason. We have creativity. We have things in our brains that I'm not, I'm not willing to sit by and let people be used by, as sheep, man. I'm just not.
yeah. Well, I still go back to the Men in Black quote of a person is not dumb, but a crowd or a group of people are, panicky, not great. So it's individual, sure, but as a group,
Right.
but
So sit down, spend the hour and a half, consider it all, just like we are, right? And it's okay to have different points of view. I don't know why we got to this point in our society where it's not okay for somebody to disagree with me. What the hell?
yeah, just have a civil conversation. Like you've said some things that I'm like, oh, I didn't consider that. That's a good point. And it's pretty clear we're not seeing 100% on this, but
It's just okay.
yeah, it's like it was a constructive conversation.
Absolutely. And one of the and I like that too, because you set the example, hopefully for others to have the same. Because one of the things you opened my eyes to, which I didn't consider enough, I think, is the bias behind things. I will go do some research and I will think, okay, because I've got it's like a meal, right? I got the meat,
Mm,
and now everything else is kind of like the spices on the meat. It's really going to influence how it tastes. It's really going
yeah,
to influence how it
great.
affects me and my brain.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, thanks, man. See, the left brain and the right brain work. We're not sheep.
Yep.
None of us are. So go watch it. I
Yeah.
had 3 news stories I wanted to talk about. They're on show notes. We're not going to talk about them now because we did spend a really good conversation today.
And we didn't even
Uh,
talk about the UHS ransomware.
oh God, there's so much to talk about, man.
Yeah.
We could do a daily podcast easily,
Just just
if we had
just
more
the yeah,
time.
yeah.
And maybe that's what I do in retirement. Is just do a daily podcast of just what the hell's going on today. Um, all right, but the 3 news stories was Windows XP, Windows Server 2003 source code leaks online. If you're using XP or 2003, by God, what the hell? Get off them. It's 17 years, 18, 20 years past that now. From when those were released. So if whatever, it's an interesting story. Go, Google it and you'll find some stuff.
Yep.
The Trump administration's TikTok ban has been delayed. Again, more interesting stuff. But TikTok, other social media app that it's crazy.
Yep.
And I thought another thing that was relevant to today's discussion, maybe we talk about it next week, is FBI and CISA warn of election results, disinformation campaigns. That's really interesting because our information is being sold to the highest bidder, and then I can feed you information or disinformation, which then
Yep.
leads to manipulation.
Yeah,
And
it
here we
speaks
are.
right into into the movie and the point of it. So I think that'll be part of that conversation next week.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it, man. This exceeded my expectations. I came in this morning thinking, well, one, I was frustrated because my schedule's all messed up because you lost internet access, but nothing you could do about that. Nothing you could do. So I blame whoever your ISP is.
So frustrated.
I know, man, isn't it? It's just God, and it throws everything off, but we're good. And this was a better episode than I was expecting. I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
Any shout outs for you this week?
Uh, you know, gosh, there's just so many. I can't pick one. I'm gonna give you a shout out for this conversation today. I agree with you.
Oh, thanks, man.
This exceeded. I didn't know what to expect coming into this, and this was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, yeah, I could return the favor, man. I give a shout out to you then, and I'll tell you why. You're in a position where it's difficult. People don't realize the stuff that you do every day. you're not front lines anymore,
No.
meaning you're not out, serving customers and being the face of FRSecure anymore. And you're also not truly like managing a group. You influence a group really heavily. And you're kind of in between the executive leadership team and the senior management team. And it's a difficult kind of spot that you operate in every day. And I really appreciate what you do, man.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. All right. We're very grateful for our listeners, and we love hearing from you. Send us messages by email at unsecurity@protonmail.com, or check us out on Twitter. It's unsecurityp. We promise to use our Twitter account to manipulate you as much as we can. So if you follow us, watch out. We're going to start sending you a bunch of weird stuff.
Yeah, like the show notes and things like that.
Right. Exactly. If you want to socialize with me or Brad directly, we sort of dare you. I'm at Evan Francine. Brad's at Brad Nye. We work for people. We get paid by, we get paychecks mostly. And if you want to follow those people, Security Studio is at Studio Security, and FRSecure is at FRSecure. And that's it. We'll talk to you again next week.